Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever the fuck you're watching this. This is another playoff edition of the RosinBaggers podcast, brought to you by Backyard Sports. Stove, I'm going your way first because it looks like we got some boneless wings over there.
Just had myself some wingies just for you guys. I saved them just for you guys in this episode.
Buddy. Getting ready for the World Series?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go Phillies. Let's go Phillies.
Yeah, a little bit of a surprise for sure. I don't know anybody would have thought Philly would be in the World Series at any point throughout this season. Ty, how you doing, man? You looking for the notes where you wrote down how Philly gets to the World Series?
I'm looking for the notes on.
Yeah, I know where he's going.
3 or 4 weeks ago when we were discussing bone-in versus boneless wings, and I still have my little cheat sheets here at my desk because I don't clean at all. We have here, if you can read this, this is bone-in wings plus blue cheese are greater than boneless wings plus ranch. That's Exhibit A. Exhibit B is Cardinals are equal to bone-in wings. The Cubs are equal to boneless wings. Therefore, the Cardinals are greater than the Cubs. That's your mathematical equation. The mathematical equation and how we got to the World Series, I have no fucking idea. Philadelphia from the 6th seed all the way to the top in the National League, a team that is playing red-hot baseball. Welcome to the World Series, Philadelphia. You are playing Houston, and the world, the baseball universe,
Who they
is
beat
now
in the
cheering
wild
in your
card
favor.
round? Who they beat in the wild card round? Oh, that's right. The Cardinals.
Props.
Of course, the Cub fan has got to bring it up.
Of course.
Who got to the playoffs, Stove? Who got to the playoffs in the National League
Will
Central?
be big fucking dude. 2 extra games as they counted as losses.
2 extra games, and then the mathematical, or the not mathematical, but the ridiculous staff changing with St. Louis in this week has been insane. You lose your bench coach and Skip Schumacher as he takes over the Miami Marlins job. Good luck to Skip. Honestly, hope for the best for him. I think he's going to have a lot of fun with Jazz Chisholm and that Miami Marlins squad. But then today, just announced their hitting coach has stepped down, which is honestly relief for the Cardinals organization. But the weird one of the day, Mike Maddox stepping away from baseball, who I've always thought was probably one of the better pitching coaches in all of baseball, decides he's at first I thought he was fired, so I was really quick on the trigger finger and basically calling John Mosliak a clown for letting him go. Turns out he stepped down on his own, wants to start his own business with a massage parlor, which is weird, but teach their own. I'm not going to knock it.
Yeah, I thought you were joking about that.
Nope, that's a true story.
Look that up.
A true story straight out of St. Louis.
Watson, and then I had to look it up, and I was like, oh, well, maybe he actually is going to have Deshaun Watson as a client.
Well, I kind of thought, so the fun part about Mike Maddox is when he comes out for mound visits, he's got what he calls a single claw or a double claw. And it's deep shit when the pitcher gets the double claw from Mike Maddox, which is 2 hands on the shoulders and he's, slightly rubbing. And then, if the pitcher's just needing a little motivation, it's the 1 paw plus a couple thumb rubs around the shoulder. So I'm like, he'd probably be a hell of a masseuse. Turns out that's what he actually wants to do. So good luck, Mike Maddox, in your future endeavors. You did the baseball universe justice throughout your entire coaching career.
Very good pitching coach. He's been really successful in a number of stops. So very good pitching coach. Pretty decent. I mean, he had a good major league career. He wasn't as successful as the other Maddox, but not many pitchers in history have been as successful as the Mad Dog. So let's get to playoff baseball, though. So let's start in the NL with the upstart surprise Philadelphia Phillies. They go through the Cardinals, the Braves, and the Padres, and they've lost 2 games throughout this entire postseason. That might be more surprising than the fact that they have gotten to the World Series is how they've gotten to the World Series. They've just dominated throughout the NL playoffs. I didn't see them beating the Padres. Especially in 4-1, but I also didn't see them beating the Cardinals or the Braves in the lead up to this. So, Ty, I'm going to pass your way. What is it with the Phillies that's got them to this point? Why are they so dangerous in the playoffs?
One word: belief. That's honestly the only thing that I can come up with Philadelphia at this point. Now, again, I'm gonna take this with a little grain of salt, and everybody that's listening should too. I'm 0 for 6 in my playoff prediction, so at this point, anything that I say should have zero credibility or validity tied to it. But for Philadelphia, I go back to Game 1 of the National League Wild Card Series with St. Louis, and it was the comeback victory when they were down 2-0 late, and Ryan Helsley, who was lights out for St. Louis all season long, was a National League All-Star closer.
Hey, Ty, sorry to interrupt, but when you say 2-0 late, like it was 2-0 top 9.
Yeah, it was really late. Open wound, insert salt stove. Thanks. I remember that. Ninth inning, they come alive. The basket going. They essentially bat around a time and a half and take a huge lead in that wild card. And ever since then, to be honest, they've looked unstoppable in terms of offensive production, in terms of their pitching. And I think there's just this big momentum train that they're riding. And there's a sense of belief in the clubhouse, and the players have latched into that. They believe in each other, and that's hard to stop. That's not something that you can look up and down and say, here's a lineup that probably has you better 1 through 9. Here's a starting rotation that might have you better 1 through 5. Here's a bullpen that might be better. Here's a manager, a skipper that might have more experience in the postseason. When you have that unstoppable motivation train rolling in your locker room, you're a damn tough out. And right now, Philadelphia is a damn tough out for anybody, and they're going to be here for Houston in the World Series.
I'm going to say this as an incredibly jaded Washington Nationals fan. It is both joyful in a way, because Bryce Harper is a big reason why I'm a Nationals fan. But it is also incredibly frustrating to watch him actually finally produce in a game that fucking matters. Because I watched him in postseasons in Washington bat 096 and 192 and fucking 210 when he was hitting 300 plus in the regular season as an MVP in Washington. To see him finally do it on the stage that matters I'm happy for the guy, but I'm also like, for fuck's sake, guy.
Where were you?
Where the fuck were you when we had loaded Washington teams batting in the heart of the lineup in crucial situations? Guys on base late in games just need a fucking clutch hit just once, guy, and he couldn't. So I'm gonna throw it as a barb and say Philly's winning because they've got Bryce Harper finally hitting in games that fucking matter. God, I fucking hate that he couldn't do it in Washington.
Love-hate relationship with what's going on in Philadelphia right now, I'm sure.
For sure. And of course it's got to be for the fucking Phillies too. Jesus Christ. Stove, talk to me, buddy. What's going on with the fucking Phillies? You're muted, bud.
Yeah, you got his mic on. He's muted.
I tried to unmute him, but
no, I muted myself when I was making fun of Ty. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Honestly, I don't know. And it could be from what Ty said. They believe. And it very well could go back to game 1 of the wild card game, where they did come back from 2-0 deficit in the top of the 9th and end up winning, what was it, 5-2 or 6, something like yeah, they lost. Cardinals lost, yippee, skippy, whatever. And honestly, they've lost 2 games this entire postseason. So then you're like, okay, look back. How did they get to that scenario? So you look back at the regular season. What'd they do their last 12 games of the season? They were 4-8. What'd they do their last 20 games of the season? They were 7-13. So it's not like they were riding a freaking hot streak going into the playoffs. But again, this goes back to what I've said, what we've said. You got to get to the playoffs. Then it's a 0-0 record. And since they made it to the playoffs, they've been playing like that, and they've been playing lights out. Now, it's interesting that the Phillies are playing the Astros in the World Series, who they had a 3-game series to end this regular season with, and lost 2 of 3 to the Stros to end the regular season. So it could be payback time for the Phillies. But again, this is 0-0. Every series starts 0-0. So, and I think after that comeback victory, they believe in themselves. It doesn't matter if they get down or anything else like that. They have the bats to score some runs. So I don't think if they get down 4 or 5 runs early on, that they're batting an eye, that they're, hunkering down and waving the white flag. It's a long ball game. They have the bats to score some runs. So give it to Philly here. I mean, I picked them to beat the Cardinals for obvious reasons, but I didn't have them beating the Braves by any means. I did have them beating the Padres, but that was, I didn't have them getting to that series, so I think the Phillies have kind of taken everyone by storm, and by surprise here, especially since the firing of Joe Girardi.
Yeah, and that was the fun, or I would say the interesting part about this entire journey for Philadelphia was, and the storyline certainly going in, you look at the turbulence that a mid-season manager change can have to a team, and it's either going to make or break you. In Anaheim, it absolutely broke them. I honestly feel like Anaheim could have contended a little better. I don't know that they would have got to the playoffs. I don't know that they would have been better than Seattle, but I thought there would have been a little bit more fight with the Angels when they got rid of Joe Madden. When the Phillies got rid of Joe Girardi, it was an absolute turnaround in the clubhouse. It was an about face. There was a sense of optimism in Philadelphia because they immediately started winning baseball games, and they got that initial belief that they could play winning baseball again. I go back to the first round of the playoffs and in that wild card round, and hypothetically, let's say St. Louis takes game 1. It not only dramatically alters the course of that series and what Philadelphia then has to throw, it dramatically alters the course of the rest of the postseason. If St. Louis is able to then just put Philadelphia in the rearview mirror and that entire NLDS shapes up, I go back and I think maybe the most single-handedly most important game that we have seen throughout this entire course of the postseason. And I'm not just saying this as a Cardinals fan. I think the entire most important game that we can put a little asterisk by when we look back at this postseason was what made it what it was. I go back to game 1 of that wild card series with St. Louis, and I go back to that down 2-0, and it was a game where, watching it, St. Louis was in total control for the first 8 innings. Philadelphia looked like they had no life. They looked completely exhausted, like they had just been playing a month of playoff baseball and were completely out of gas, and then found magic. And once they found that little spark, they've been nothing but in fuego since. And to their credit, turning around and taking it down the defending World Series champions in 5, turning around and taking a San Diego Padres team that had a little sip of life and a sip of optimism after knocking off the Dodgers, not only their rival, but who was arguably bulletin board material as the bullet on their back as the team to beat. And San Diego turns around and beats them. And then Philadelphia in another 5-game series is able to knock off San Diego. And to be honest, in pretty convincing fashion. There was some pretty good baseball games, but overall, you felt on the eye test like Philadelphia was the better team. And I just go back to that managerial change, and so many front offices so often get it wrong when they pull the trigger. In Philadelphia's case, even though I was a Joe Girardi guy, they got it right. And so you got to give credit where credit's due. And that shift in the middle of the season, even before the trade deadline, obviously has paid off dividends. This new manager that's in Philadelphia right now, like I said, he's like on last week's pod, he's been around the game for God knows how many years, and finally gets his shot, and he's making the most of it. And you got to be excited about that. Not only do you got to be excited about that from the neutral perspective, but from the perspective that everybody fucking hates on the Astros, you're even more pumped up for this guy to get a ring and a trophy.
All right, let's shift gears over to the AL, where the Houston Astros have absolutely dominated. 7 wins, no losses against the upstart Mariners in the division series. Swept them 3-0. Big brother in the AL West keeps little brother at bay. And then they go and smash the New York Yankees, who we've had a lot of differing conversations throughout the season about the New York Yankees. Early in the year, I don't think anybody expected much from them. Then they go and win a bunch of games, and we're talking about 116 and all that, and Stove's telling us, slowly pump the fucking brakes here, right? And the Yankees prove him correct, right? They shit the bed after the All-Star break, and honestly, they probably only win that division because of the weird first half that they had where they were just winning games on last – ninth inning hits almost every single fucking night. It felt like Aaron Judge was hitting a home run to walk off a game. And we see that play out here in the postseason where they struggled against the Guardians, who honestly had an opportunity to put their stud on the mound in Game 5 and maybe things play out differently. But then we see the Yankees against the Astros. And I know we all hate the Astros, but the Yankees never had a chance in this series. They really didn't. They were never in it. It never felt like they were going to get in it. They had a lead in one game, I think, in this series, and I think it was Game 4 that they had a 2-1 lead, and then, of course, Houston goes and finishes them off in 4. Stove, your way first here, buddy. Talk to me about the AL Championship. I know that we hate the Astros. We are all the time bagging on the Astros, but they really put it to the Yankees, huh?
They did. And Ty and we are eating crow for this one. You picked the correct cheating team here.
And that's fair.
It just – and, probably should have bet more with, my mind than I did my heart on this one.
It's hard.
It is. Because, like you said, that second half of the season for the Yankees was just abysmal. Judge put that whole team on his back and carried them into the postseason. And typically, if you have a guy that's doing that, and it could be pitching wise, you look at Kershaw, with the Dodgers, being that 15, 17 game winner, during the regular season, and then always get shelled in the postseason. And this is kind of almost the same scenario, just as in a different form as a hitter now. First part of the season, Yankees were smashing. Second part, they weren't, and so that carried over into the postseason, and they just did not get the job done. Pitching wasn't there like it was. Hitting was definitely not there. Way too many strikeouts. And I said, this should have been a tell-all for anyone looking at this series before it even started. You look at this series against the Guardians and Yankees. I said the Yankees hit as a team like 192. They did have 9 home runs, and that's what won them that series. But if you're hitting 192 as a team, you're not going to win 9 times out of 10. They got the one win. Okay. But this is postseason. You cannot do that. You have to have all 3 aspects of your game on. And unfortunately for the Yankees, they didn't have any. They had errors. Their pitching wasn't there, and their hitting wasn't there. And that's just a recipe for disaster.
Yep, for sure. Ty, talk to me, buddy.
I'm going to say a couple things about this Yankees-Astros series, and I'm going to do it in with all due respect to the Houston Astros, to not give them any credit whatsoever because I fucking hate the Astros. First of all, I'm going to give and tip my cap in this series, and honestly, Houston should too, to the Cleveland Guardians, because I think the Guardians absolutely wore any life that was left in New York out with that 5-gamer. That New York was able to pick up the win and go 3-2, but that was an exhausting series for the New York Yankees. So I tip a lot of my cap to Cleveland for just playing so damn good late in the postseason, having that opportunity. And again, hindsight's going to be 2020, and Cleveland's certainly going to be looking back at that for not only this year, but years to come down the stretch, the what ifs, and what if you start your ace in that 5th game on short rest, and how many innings can he get you, and can he get to the ALCS? Would Cleveland have had anything left? Would it have been a similar outcome? Probably. Houston, with the road they've had and the ease that they have made it look on the baseball diamond, they look on the eye test like the real deal and the deserved team to come out of the ALCS into the World Series. So I'm not going to knock that. I'm just going to knock the fact that it's fucking Houston and I hate him. The other factor here is, and I think it was said in the group chat, I don't even remember if it was said in the pod, and I don't even remember between Gary or Stove who said it. But one of you guys came out and was talking about the New York Yankees and said the knock on them is they are far too one-dimensional offensively. It's an offense that relies solely upon the long ball, and you need to have more facets in your game in the postseason play. You have to be able to adapt to situations. And for New York, it looked like it was long ball or bust. And that's why you saw the strikeouts. That's why you saw the aggressive swings. That's why you saw Houston essentially pitching staff having little to no problem with them, because New York was going for the big shot. And it seemed like they were going for the long ball from game one on. And they never adapted to what was in front of them and what Houston was presenting to them defensively. They came into the postseason, like Stove said, this was a wobbly school bus that came into the postseason. And I likened it to, from the outside perspective, from the neutrals, and they probably looked at all the names, and Judge and Rizzo and Stanton and Nestor, it looked like a Dodge Viper, but by the time they got to the postseason, it had a Chevy Corsica engine in it. I mean, it just didn't have the longevity to get you into the World Series. And woe is me for not realizing that. I'm with Stove. I picked with my heart, not my head, here in this one. And it bit my ass, not only on the pocketbook a little bit, but also, for a little claim to fame here on the RosinBaggers pod. I have to eat crow too. I wanted to see Houston so desperately fall in that series. It didn't happen. Again, they're playing such good baseball, and right now it's just Houston looks like they're going to work. They look like they're grabbing their lunch pail and they're going through the assembly line, and they're just doing their job right now. Where everybody else in the playoffs, maybe minus Philadelphia, looks like they're still scrambling to try to polish some things up. Houston looks polished. Philly looks polished. We got a good World Series. We got a good October Classic coming your way.
Yeah, for sure. And we talked about it all week, right? I didn't make this pick because I like the Astros. I talked about it last week. I used to have a soft spot for the Astros, and it disappoints me that we dealt with the scandal that we dealt with. I used to love watching Bagwell and Biggio and all the names that used to play for the Astros, because as I grew up, they played the Braves often, and the Braves were always on TV on TBS. And I liked some of the things that the Astros could do and the way they played baseball back then. But this was just, to me, when I make a pick, I guess I'm just trying to make a pick of who I think is going to win. I didn't want the Astros to win, but I also hate the Yankees so much that I wanted both teams to lose, and that's not possible. So I had to make a pick and pick the Astros, and it really does boil down to what both of you said, right? It's the Yankees can't hit the ball around the ballpark. They have to hit the ball out of the ballpark. And against a pitching staff like the Astros can roll out there, you're not going to hit 4 or 5 dongs a game. You're just not. They got fortunate against Cleveland and had a couple of really clutch, well-timed home runs that carried them through that series. They didn't do that. They didn't do that against Houston, and you weren't going to do that against Houston. The Yankees can't change. They are who they are. They signed the people that they signed. They've put the people in place that they've put in place, and they don't have the pitching horses to hold teams to 1 or 2 runs a game every single game. And that's really what it boiled down to. The Astros lineup is deep, but they can also move the guys around the diamond. You saw some guys laying down bunts that you probably wouldn't expect to lay down bunts. You don't see it during the regular season because it's the regular season. But when push comes to shove in the playoffs, the Astros showed an ability to adapt to October baseball that the Yankees didn't have. And for, all of Booney's strengths to be able to put a lineup out there that won a bunch of games this year, you're not making the changes in the playoffs that you need to make. That's partially approach. That's partially players that you've signed, but it's also the manager not really saying, hey, this is October baseball. This is how you win in October. Aaron Boone was a big part of a really big playoff run and doesn't really show that as a manager. So that's really, to me, what the crux of my choice of the Astros boiled down to, is that the Astros are deeper, they're more versatile, they've got arms that can match up, and the Yankees just didn't have that. And I think that played out in a 4-0 series sweep here. The Astros were just demonstrably better than the Yankees.
Quick questions. 2 quick questions here on the series. You talked about the arms for the New York Yankees, and I'm curious on this, and I'll throw in my little prop here with my St. Louis Cardinals logo because we'll go back to it and flash back to the trade deadline. How big was the Jordan Montgomery trade in retrospect now? They lost an arm in that rotation to gain an outfielder in Harrison Bader. Now, Bader had a great series. He might have been the lone bright spot, I think, for the New York Yankees offensively. But how much did that weigh moving forward for New York here in this postseason? Then I have a follow-up with Aaron Boone here after this one.
So I'm going to jump in here real quick, Stove, and then I'll pass it your way, because my answer is twofold here with the trade. One, the Yankees missed that arm, and Montgomery was great for the Cardinals down the stretch. So we can point to that and say, look, you traded a guy who finished the season really well. Whether or not you would have been able to maximize his arm like that or not, the Cardinals did, okay? But the flip side of that, there was it was either game 2 or game 3, there was a ball that dropped in the outfield between Bader and Judge, because Judge cut Bader off on that fly ball. Now, where was Judge playing all season? Center field, where he has command. Everybody knows center fielder has right of way for the entire outfield, and everybody else has to play around the center fielder. Now, he's in right field in this series with Harrison Bader in center field. Harrison Bader is one of the best defensive center fielders in baseball, but Aaron Judge has in his mind, I've got the right of way, and cuts him off. Ball drops in. I think 2 runs scored on the play, and it changed the tone of that game. It was either 2 or 3. It changed the tone of that game. So not only did you trade away an arm that played really well elsewhere, you also created turmoil in your outfield, an outfield that was pretty much set in stone with Aaron Judge playing center field for 140 plus games this season. So I think twofold, that trade hurt the Yankees in the long run. Stove, what are your thoughts on the trade?
I don't think you should have made the trade. honestly, I mean, you can kind of plug people in the outfield. You can't plug people in on the mound all the time. And as you're seeing, with the teams that go further on into the playoffs and deep into the playoffs and make those playoff runs, what gets them there? It's their pitching. You have to have pitching. And for the Yankees, where it was basically maybe a 1-2 punch with them, with Garrett Cole and Cortez, that's not deep. That's not depth. So for me, obviously St. Louis won that deal. But yeah, definitely hurt the Yankees the second half of the season and in the playoffs.
Nailed my point on the ball dropped in the outfield. By the way, the minute that I saw that, I'm like, that doesn't happen if Harrison Bader doesn't get traded. It doesn't happen, period. And it was a game-changing play. And ultimately, in the playoff scenario, a game-changing play, as we noted in St. Louis and Philadelphia, can be a series-changing play.
Yep, absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
Lastly,
yes.
Can we give the award to the worst excuse ever, period,
in the history
of baseball?
Yes.
To Aaron Boone.
Ty, yes, I know where you're going.
The roof.
Fucking yes.
The roof was the problem. Blame it on the roof.
Yep.
I mean, not T.I. He's not blaming it on the alcohol. He's blaming it on the roof. Get the fuck out of here.
Look, if prior to the series, Houston had upped and relocated to another place, maybe. You've played there before.
Right.
You've fucking played there before a lot of times, including the ALCS that you think you got robbed of. A lot of times. It's silly.
The worst excuse I've ever heard in my life.
Go ahead, Stove.
No, I just said silly. Silly goose.
It really is. Unbelievable. Anyway, let's get to where we've been building up to all season. And this may not be the World Series that anybody picked. This may not be the World Series that anybody wants to see because the hated cheat stros are in the playoffs. And the Philadelphia Phillies were the 6th seed and lucky, honestly, to make the playoffs. If you look at where they were at the All-Star break, they make the managerial change and the team catches fire. They play playoff baseball for the last 2 months of the season. They get in as the 6th seed. They knock off the Cardinals. They knock off the Braves. They knock off the Padres, who knocked off the heavy, heavy favorite in the Dodgers. But we've got a matchup that might bring some intrigue because of the fact that we didn't expect it. Houston against the city of Philadelphia. They've already greased the polls just in case Philadelphia wins the World Series. Ty, I'm gonna frame this in a couple of different ways because we only have one series to talk about.
Right.
So let's start. Who has the best starting rotation in the World Series? Who's favored here when it comes to starting pitching in the World Series?
I love this because you're doing exactly what I was going to do when I was going to do my series preview here. We didn't like collaborate with a memo, so I put like
together, we're gonna take our time and we're gonna
I put together like a food pyramid of factors here in the World Series, from like the most important things that teams have to the least important things and where those teams rank. So we're going right up in the alley. You said You said 1 through 9. Is that what you're looking for?
Starting rotation.
Starting rotation. I'm going to go Philadelphia here. Aaron Nola has found his resurgence. It's a 1A, 1B in terms of your ace with Justin Verlander. Of course, Verlander drinks from the fountain of youth. I don't know what the fuck. The fact that he's still...
Whatever Kate Upton's doing.
Whatever. Sorry, had a mental visual there. We're back in action. Wheeler, Nola. I love the Phillies rotation in terms of a playoff series. 1 through 5, they might not be as deep as far as the big guns, as far as the guys that can get the job done. I actually like Phillies rotation slightly better than Houston.
I'm a little surprised by that. Stove?
Yeah, I am too. No, I was gonna go Houston on this one, and honestly, it's Verlander. I mean, I don't get me wrong. Nola has done a fantastic job over there. But you gotta go with Kate Upton.
Oh, she should send us an autographed picture after this podcast for all the love we've been giving her.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm with Houston. It's a little bit of. I do see where you're at, Ty, in terms of strength at the top for sure. I just think Houston goes a little deeper, and if they decide they want to go deeper than 3, I think they can. I don't think they have to necessarily because of the schedule. You've got 2 day off, 3 day off, and then finish up with 2. So they should, both teams, I think, should be able to get away with 3. Mm-hmm. But I think that the experience that Houston has in their starting rotation out of the pen gives them a slight edge here because they've got 2 guys in their starting rotation that really started their career as relief pitchers. So I think they've got some versatility built into that starting rotation. And I think that's where I give the nod. Nola's been unbelievable in the postseason. Mm-hmm. And he's been the guy I think that we all would have expected him to be at the beginning of the season. We talked about it, I think, halfway through the year that he wasn't that guy, but he has found it as the season's gone on. And as he's gotten better, as Philly's gotten better, it's been just kind of a nice synergistic ecosystem there. And he's continued that in the playoffs. Zach Wheeler's been really good. I give a little bit of a nod to Houston because of that versatility. They've got some opportunities to bring guys in. If they get a starter that struggles, they've got an opportunity to get some long relief innings out of some guys out of that rotation coming in out of the bullpen. And we've seen it, right? Managers try to bring starters in and they aren't guys that have experience in the pen and they struggle. I think that Houston has an opportunity to possibly get some longer innings out of guys that you wouldn't expect to come out of the bullpen.
Oh, for sure. I'm just going on the idea that the majority of both teams are going to go on short rest opportunities. And in that case, you want to be top heavy on your rotation. And I think Philadelphia is certainly a little more top heavy than Houston.
Sure. All right. Let's look at bullpen. Stove, who's got the better pen here in this series?
Man, Okay, so Houston.
It's tails. if you're wondering.
I'm gonna go Houston on this one.
Okay.
For me, it's looking what they've done in the postseason, but also looking what they've done the last part of the regular season as well too. And that bullpen is tried and true.
Yeah.
They've been battle tested. They've proven themselves. Mm-hmm. So I got to give the nod to Houston, unfortunately.
Ty, do you agree? Disagree?
It's a coin flip, honest to God. I mean, it's 50-50 here. If I'm going to give an edge, if you're going to say, I need a real answer from you and give me a team, it's heads or tails for me in terms of the bullpen factor and the numbers and the quality in their bullpen. The X factor to me within that bullpen is Sir Anthony Dominguez for Philadelphia. He's been insane when he comes into the game. You can throw him in a long save situation if you have to. He can get 6 outs. He's very versatile. The X factor to me in the bullpen between the two teams, which are straight up even at this point, would be Sir Anthony Dominguez for Philadelphia. So I would give a slight edge, but it is out of all of the different factors that you look at when you're determining who's going to win a series, whether it be a regular season series or a playoff series, bullpen is one of those factors. The slight edge would go to Philadelphia, just for one player, and it's Dominguez. I had him on my fantasy team. He was lights out.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, if I'd have asked myself this question a month ago, I would have laughed at myself, honestly, because Philly's bullpen was not good during the regular season. They were not. Even down the stretch when they were winning games because they were mashing on everybody, and the starting pitching was good, and they were able to get just enough out of the bullpen to shut things down. And, of course, Sir Anthony Dominguez has been good throughout the season, but one guy doesn't make a bullpen, right? Mm-hmm. This isn't 1995 baseball where Trevor Hoffman makes the San Diego Padres the best bullpen in baseball. This is 2022 when everybody's trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark. But I can't ignore the last 3 weeks for the Philadelphia Phillies, who have had maybe the best bullpen in baseball during the postseason. And it's not just Dominguez. It's guys that have sucked during the regular season who have been pretty lights out during the postseason. And you mentioned that Cardinals game that they felt entirely in charge of, in control of. The Phillies bullpen came in and blanked, just hanging donuts as you went throughout the rest of that game after the Cardinals got their lead and just kept the team in it. And then they were able to get the bats going. And that's sort of been the recipe for success for the Phillies throughout this postseason. I'm going to give a slight edge to the Phillies with the bullpen. And I just, if you'd have asked me a month ago, there's no chance I would have given that fucking answer. Stove, Ty, you both said it was a coin flip. I think it is that razor thin, but I just think that during the postseason, the Philly bullpen has just got something going on that they're able to just get outs and keep their team in the game for sure. And they're waiting for that Bryce Harper 2-run bomb to left center field to give them the lead over the Padres. All right, let's shift gears a little bit here to the defensive side of the ball. Who in this series has a better defense? Ty, let's start with you.
Oh, man. This is a good one. I love Houston's outfield. The middle infield for Philadelphia is as solid as you're going to see. Catcher advantage goes to JT all day long. He's insane. And certainly the captain of that defense. The hot corner, Philadelphia.
Really, all over Bregman.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But yeah, it's your outfield. It's your speed with Houston. They're certainly good. Altuve's great up the middle. He has moments where you kind of scratch your head a little bit, and I think Philadelphia has just been so solid up the middle. I think anything on the ground, Houston's not going to be able to have those kind of key clutch hits that you see in the postseason where you get a guy burning down the line, can beat out an infield single. I think the infield is certainly better for Philly. Outfield advantage to Houston, but the captain of the defense is where I'll tip the cap and give the slight edge to Philadelphia. I'm giving a lot of the edge to the Phillies, and I don't know if this is just me hating on Houston so much, but right now it's leaning that way. Give me the captain of the defense, JT Realmuto, and in Phillies to have that slight edge defensively. But again, defensively, just like the bullpen race, it's pretty even here in this series.
Stove?
I like what Ty said there and like where he went up the middle. As a former catcher, I like where Ty went. So I'm also going the Phillies here as far as the defensive side. But just like Ty said as well, it's pretty even. You went with the Stros for outfield, didn't you, Ty?
Yeah. Yep.
Here's where I would disagree. I would actually go Philly with Harper and Schwarber, baby. Converted catcher to the outfielder.
Is he though?
Yes.
Is he an asset in the outfield?
Absolutely, he is.
Okay. He's a great bat, man. He's a great bat.
Yeah, you would know, wouldn't you?
I think he's a little bit of a liability defensively. That's IMO, in my opinion. Thanks for that.
Oh man, yeah, I'm gonna agree with both of you. And Stove, I like how you emphasize that up the middle, right? It's not just catcher, it's not just middle infield, it's up the middle. It's the strength of Philadelphia all the way up the middle in terms of catcher, middle infielders, and center fielder. And that's honestly a little bit of traditional baseball, right? Isn't that how teams were built defensively throughout the history of baseball? The greatest teams were good at catcher, really good in the middle infield, and really good in center field. You know, you look at all these teams throughout time that have been really successful, and that's kind of where they're built. I give the edge to Philly. The one place that I do disagree is I like Bregman over Bohm. We've seen throughout the season that he's gone through some funks. In fact, such a funk that he has said, "I fucking hate this city," about Philadelphia because they were booing him so much.
Man, I remember that.
He's been better, right, than that, but he does go through stretches where he can boot a ball and throw a ball away. I also think that first base is probably an advantage for Philly. So, you know, give one corner, take one corner, because Maldonado is not a natural first baseman. He's been fine, but he's not a natural first baseman. So I lean to Philly because of the strength up the middle. It is that pivot up the middle with the solid fielding turning two up the middle. Center field's been good. It's a little bit of a wash, I think, in center field, but really, Ty, you emphasized that JT Realmuto makes such a difference for them in terms of his ability to direct the defense, but also be one of maybe the 3 or 4 best defensive catchers in all of baseball. Not to mention his bat that he brings, and we'll get to that in a minute. But
I have serious trust issues with Rhys Hoskins. I have trust issues with him. Like, he's burnt me a few times before, and he's burnt Philadelphia a few times before. I have trust issues there.
I think he's a more natural first baseman than Maldonado, though. That's kind of why I lean that way.
That's fair.
All right, let's talk lineup 1 through 9. And I'm gonna prime a little bit. Feel free to maybe break this down if you want, of course. You know, top of the order, middle of the order, bottom of the order. How deep a lineup is. Ty, where do you give the advantage here, lineup-wise, Philly versus Houston?
God, do I have like some alcohol to wash this comment down with? It's the Stros. It's the Stros 1 through 9. I love the middle of the order for Philadelphia, and I don't think it gets better in the middle of the order than what Philadelphia has. You go 1 through 9, batting average, on base percentage, find a way to get on board. You know, we mentioned some of the infield singles that I think that Houston is going to have trouble with Philadelphia's defense in this series, but they seem to find a way to get aboard. They've got great plate discipline towards the bottom of the order. They can draw walks. They can get into long at-bats that can just drain a starting pitcher, not only in terms of stamina, but also in terms of mentality and how you attack. They throw the kitchen sink at him, then the top of the order gets a look at literally everything and just crushes. And like Yordan Alvarez has done so many times this year, 1 through 9 batting order, it's the edge to Houston. Middle of the order goes to Philly, but I think, you know, the rest of the 6, give me Houston all day.
Stove?
I can't disagree with Ty here. Houston for me, and it's more so experience. And especially look at, you know, back-to-back World Series here for Houston, and just the guys that have been in Houston for 3, 4, 5, 6 years now, and just seeing what they've been able to accomplish. And it's like the Dodgers. They're the Dodgers in the American League right now. So yeah, for me, it's Houston and experience. For those reasons.
I think you slept on the Rays, man.
You did sleep on the Rays.
Yep, you slept on the Rays.
Sorry.
That's okay. They were there. But you're right. Houston is the equivalent to the Dodgers in terms of recent success in October. I would give you that point.
Actually, no. Braves played the Astros last year. Dodgers beat the Rays.
Yes.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
2 years ago was the Rays.
That was the Kyle Turner COVID year. Yeah, that was weird. That was a weird time to be alive.
Yeah. I agree with you guys. Honestly, I think we're pretty unanimous on this one. I think middle of the lineup, Harper, Schwarber, Castellanos, like that's a pretty fucking formidable middle of the lineup. And we mentioned it at the beginning of the season. I think, I brought up the fact that Castellanos makes that lineup longer in Philly, and Real Muto is a fine hitting catcher. He's gonna support as well. It's just that lineup for the Astros it's fucking so daunting. 1 through 9, they all can get on you. They all can hit it deep, but they also, as Ty put it, they're going to put the ball in play a lot more than I think the Phillies are. They're going to put pressure on the defense, and as good as that Philly defense is up the middle, they're going to put pressure on them. They're going to put balls in play, and they're going to move guys around, and that's what we saw against the Yankees. Right, the Yankees couldn't do that; they couldn't make the adjustment to October baseball. So, for me, 1 through 9, as daunting as that lineup is, as a former pitcher, I wouldn't want to face a lineup that was that fucking scary. 1 through 9. If I'm facing the Phillies, I know that I'm going to have my work cut out for me 4, 5, 6, but I've got some spots that I can take at bats off in that lineup. You don't have a spot against the Astros that you can really take an at bat off. And that's pressure pitches. And you're going to face a lot of them with that Phillies rotation, with that Phillies bullpen. They're going to face a lot of pressure pitches against the Astros. That lineup is just scary. Super scary. All right, so let's wrap this all together. Let's put a nice little bow on it. Stove, I'm going to go your way first. Who you got winning this series?
Phillies.
Are you picking with your head or your heart?
Phillies.
Let's go.
With both. All right.
Both.
Ty, what about you, buddy?
All right, here we go. Time for the food pyramid of my World Series prediction. We talked about a few of the items on said food pyramid, but I'll walk you through this really mathematical, like a math teacher that I'm not. I struggled in math, so why I'm doing this. We have the pyramid. We have 7 different factors. We have 7 games of potential in a World Series. And as we already mentioned, one of those factors was a coin flip, so that's a wash. And I brought in a new factor, and I'm going to ask Big Stove not to mute me when I disrespect his Chicago Cubs here in just a little bit for my 7th and final point, because there's a punchline at the end of it, and it's going to be great. We start off with the X factor. Who is the best player in this entire World Series? And it's Bryce Harper, bar none. Best player in the World Series between both teams, Bryce Harper. First edge goes to Philly. Philly wins game 1. I don't know if it's going to be in this particular order, but let's just walk with it for the time being. Philly wins game 1. Who's got the managerial edge? Gee, many Christmas. You got to give the experience factor to Dusty Baker, right? And everything he's been able to do in Houston. Dusty gets the edge there for the Stros. Aaron, take that back. It's a bad comment. So the Stros tie it up 1 apiece. Starting pitching, as I've mentioned, I give the edge to the Phillies, so make it 2-1 Philadelphia. Who's got the better lineup 1 through 9? That's the Astros. We go 2-2. Then I'll go to another factor. I'll go to the home crowd factor.
Ooh.
Philly gonna be fired up.
It's not even close.
I get it. Like, it's liking it, and even though it's not nearly as long as a wait as Chicago had for their World Series, when you're a Philadelphia fan, like 2 years, you get impatient as fuck.
Yeah.
So Philadelphia is stoked. First time since 2011. They're going to be absolutely insane. It'll be electric. Home crowd advantage goes to Philadelphia. Let's make it 3-2. Then we go to the experience factor overall, not just managerial, but experience factor overall. Astros been there, done that. They have essentially just chalked through this entire American League postseason. Give the edge in the experience factor. Who's been here in October baseball to the Stros? That nods it up at 3-3. My final point, as we go to a Game 7 here in this World Series, let's call it the Bartman factor. A lot of weird shit happens in baseball. A bounce, a bobble, a ground ball with eyes, a dying quail that drives in 2 runs, a lot of weird crap, a fan that reaches over into the glove of Moises Alou and grabs the ball and costs the Cubs a chance to go to a World Series. That crazy shit happens, so let's call it the Bartman factor. And as I look at like the 9 degrees of Steve Bartman, the last time that the Cubs were playing the Marlins when that infamous thing happened, I believe the Stros were in the National League Central. And here in the Midwest, we have this weird thing about like cheering for teams that are in our own division. Like Nebraska's like, yes, go Ohio State if we're in the playoffs. Fuck that. Like, don't go Ohio State. They're going to get all the recruits if they win the Natty. But here in the Midwest, we're like nice like that. The National League Central, you got a Cubs fan, Bartman, who's probably like, hey, we played the Stros before. They used to be in our division. Let's go Astros. He's cheering for them. That's a curse. Bartman's going to affect the Stros. Phillies in 7. Sharpie.
I like that. That was an incredible journey, and I appreciate taking us along for that ride.
It's gonna be the Bartman factor though. Like, why can't it be like?
I never would have guessed that Bartman was coming out.
It could be the Bartman factor. You could also call it the Bill Buckner factor, but I couldn't make a tie-in to Bill Buckner and the Houston Astros like I could to the Steve Bartman and the Houston Astros. So I had to move in a direction.
All good. All good.
There was a fork in the road, and he had to pick away.
Yeah, he had to pick one.
And I just chose the one that's still kind of an open wound for Cubs fans. Like, it's fine. I just like to pour salt.
All good.
It's great. Phillies in 7.
Well,
I like the prediction 4-3. Like it.
I'm gonna hang out over here.
Go fuck yourself again.
On Peter Island.
Didn't even hit my camera.
Don't worry, I put him on mute.
Because he's going to say it, isn't he?
Yeah, he's going to.
I'm going to say it because Houston's just better than Philly.
Ooh.
If you say it, you like boneless chicken wings with ranch.
I guess I'm a boneless chicken wing guy.
Eat your nuggies. Eat your nuggies.
I'll eat my adult chicken nuggets and dip them in ranch. Look, I wish both teams could lose. I'm going to say the same thing I said about the Yankees and Astros. I wish both teams could lose because I cannot stand most things about the city of Philadelphia, especially the Fightin' Phils. Like, miss me with the way they treat visiting people, visiting teams and fans. Miss me with the way they act. The city of Philadelphia literally went after an 85-year-old geriatric woman in a wheelchair because she's a Vikings fan. Miss me with that. Both cities.
What's wrong with that? What is wrong with that?
There's a lot wrong with that.
No, there's not.
There's a lot wrong with that.
No, there's not.
No.
I don't see anything wrong.
I
with
wish
that.
both teams would lose this series. But as Aaron put it, get the brooms out.
Ooh, 4.
Brooms out.
4.
So you're saying next week's podcast we're not
We're
having
going to be talking about the World Series champion Houston Astros. Honestly,
like, way to shoo all of our audience away. Like, nobody wants to listen to us talking about the World Series champion Houston Astros. Join us when we're going to have a live game to actually talk about, and excitement overflowing because Bryce Harper's going yard left and right, and Kyle Schwarber hits a 480-foot bomb, and we all go ooh ah, and they take it to 7. Don't give me Houston. Give me like at least dramatic. Say Philly's going to win one. Nola's not going to win a game?
Gentlemen's sweep at best.
Wow.
At best, we'll have one game to talk about on Wednesday.
That's fair. As long as we get one more game to do a pod. I just don't want to congratulate the Houston Astros on a World Series championship.
Listen.
Don't worry, Ty, we won't.
We are not congratulating Houston on fucking anything.
Tell you what, if Houston wins, I won't be on the next podcast.
We may be talking about the Houston Astros winning the World Series, but we goddamn sure won't be celebrating Houston winning fucking anything.
Due to unforeseen circumstances.
Yeah.
Houston winning. There will be no pod for the foreseeable future.
We'll talk about NCAA basketball.
I'm good with that. Let's not call NBA a sport, but I'm good with NCAA. Let's go.
Yeah. But yeah, it's to me, Houston looks different this year. They're on a mission. They've got all the pieces in place. It's 4 or 5, and that's it. That's it. I don't think Philly's got enough horses to deal with the cheat Stros. I'm picking with my head, not my heart. I'm sorry. I'm not going to apologize. I wouldn't pick the fucking Phillies either. Fuck them.
The amount of research that I went into my Steve Bartman pyramid.
I should have gone before you.
I would like to think.
I should have gone before you.
Don't worry, Ty.
I would like to think that I put my head into it a little bit, and it's not just 100%
it was
your heart.
Great, and I enjoyed the ride.
No, I appreciate that. God,
But
Houston.
4 or 5.
Damn it.
That's it. All right. Let's, my shitty pick aside, let's get some closing thoughts. We've had a long season. We've had almost lost part of this season, and then we ended up salvaging 163 games. So we got a full season on the inaugural season of the RosinBaggers podcast. Stove, talk to me, buddy. As we embark upon the World Series that we've been building toward all season, what are your thoughts?
Well, clearly it's not the teams that we picked to be in there. But, here we are. We're sitting here with 2 teams that, we don't necessarily care for nor want to be here, but we're going to pick the teams that we, think are going to win and think has the better team, and whoever wins most games is going to come out on top here, and it's going to be a World Series champion and going to get that little piece of shiny little metal trophy right there. That's going to be the Philadelphia Phillies, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the series mid-form next week on next week's podcast, because it is going to go 7 games, and we're going to be talking about it next week, and we're going to have a great old time next week on next week's podcast.
Love it. Ty, you flip the cap around, bud.
We're because it's Houston and Philadelphia, and it's the World Series nobody wanted, so it might as well be hockey season, right? St. Louis Blues in action tonight against the Edmonton Oilers for the second time in the regular season. They've only played 5 games. We played Edmonton twice. Apparently, they want us to go through the Connor McDavid well and grinder. I don't know why. Switch sports. Back to baseball. I know you have a love-hate relationship with the guy, but I want to see Bryce Harper holding that trophy for the Philadelphia Phillies. I really think that he has been one of the greatest players of the last certainly decade for this new generation of baseball fans to enjoy and to watch when he's on the field and not hurt. Bryce has been fantastic. I want to see him get a World Series trophy. As a LSU baseball fan, I want to see Aaron Nola go 2 strong games here in this World Series for the Philadelphia Phillies. Love what Nola brings to the table.
Baseball fan?
What? LSU? Absolutely.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers. We built and we witnessed. Stove is on to Cincinnati. we built and we've witnessed a great season here of Major League Baseball. Again, there's certainly matchups that we would have been more enjoyable for the neutrals, I think, to sit back and watch. You know, you would have loved to see Julio Rodriguez make a little bit deeper run with still, but the playoffs are what they are, and you can't argue when you take a look at the body of work from Philadelphia in the National League and Houston in the American League that these aren't the two most deserving teams to make their way into the World Series. And I think we're going to see, as opposed to the gentleman's sweep, I think we're going to see a good battle. And for the first time, really, since Cleveland and New York, I think we're going to see a deep series. I think we're going to see one that goes the distance. And any day you're playing baseball is better than a day you're not. And if we're still watching baseball 7 games into November, I'm totally fine with that at this point. I want to see more baseball. I want to see maximum effort. I want to see this. I want to see this go 7 because these are taking all to account the cheatery. Is that a word? I'm going to make it up. The cheatingness that Houston has gone through in their history. They're still a fun team to watch. And I want to see them with Philadelphia go the distance. This one goes 7. Phillies win.
Look, I do hope we get 7. I do. I always want game 7, honestly.
No,
I want game 7. I don't think we're going to get game 7. I want it.
You said 4.
I did say 4, maybe 5. But I want game 7. Honestly, because there's nothing better in sports than game 7 of any playoff series. Hockey, basketball, baseball. Game 7, it's awesome. And if we've got baseball to talk about next Wednesday, I'm fully on board. If we've got a game 7 to wrap up the following Wednesday, that's going to be phenomenal. But what I don't want as a Nationals fan, and I'm going to finish on this, I do not, Ty, I fully disagree with you. I do not want Bryce Harper to get any fucking October hardware after he left Washington for a division rival for similar money. He can kiss the fattest part of my ass. I hope he never fucking wins a World Series.